Welcome back to Burning Questions, a 500 Degrees podcast. Brent, welcome. 500 Degrees is a content development shop in Toronto, Miami, Columbus, Ohio. We do all the digital content for some of the best QSRs on the planet. So Burger King, Tim Hortons, Popeyes, and now Firehouse Subs. We work in the convenience store industry as well as automotive industry. Anybody that's a multi-unit retailer that has a need for thousands of pieces of digital content to be distributed to their platforms. That's what we do day in, day out. If you want to learn more about our business, go to weare500degrees.com or click the link or the QR code and go visit us. One of the joys of what I do is coming into contact with brilliant people. And we have one of those people here with us today, Brent Hodgins. You're an international keynote speaker, not a domestic keynote speaker, but an international keynote speaker. You're an author. You've had a great creative career and business development career at some of the best shops on the planet. So McKinney, Chiat, Leo Burnett. But most importantly, from a client perspective, as well as an agency perspective, is what you do at Mirren Business Development, as well as the Mirren Live conferences, which I think you are still fresh from recovering. Mirren Live in New York from last week. And you also have the CEO version of that coming up. So Brent, welcome. Tell us a little bit about how you started Mirren, and if you could just break down, is there a benefit for clients as well as for agencies? How do you approach that?
We focus pretty exclusively on agencies, pretty specialized in that space, helping agencies drive growth. And I guess what originally inspired the notion that there was an opportunity or a need for more training, for growth training, be it for client-facing teams on organic growth or pitch teams on pitching business, goes back to when I was still agency side. And for the longest time, I thought that I just happened to pick the only agencies on the planet who were completely dysfunctional with new business, with pitching. It's like, how did we're so organized with our clients, our accounts, and then these great pitches come along, and it's sort of panic with a chance of miracles hoping to come along to pull off the pitch. And before I went to Wieden & Kennedy, which was the last agency I was at before Mirren, I interviewed at 6 or 7 of the large New York shops and realized pretty quickly, all right, everyone's dealing with the same challenges. It's, agency culture is so reactive, and that comes through with new business where all the deadlines are, you have to be a little bit more proactive to be organized, to get on top of the pitch, to get everyone organized who's working on the pitch on top of their day jobs. And sort of the seed was sort of planted then, hang on, maybe there's an opportunity to bring some order to the chaos of growing an agency. And when I went to Wieden & Kennedy, I had sort of this mental framework that I was using. Part of the goal was to sort of build a more proactive, a more organized new business engine for the agency. And I looked at it not just for Wieden & Kennedy, but could a set of methods, principles, best practices be developed that could apply to any agency? So when I left Wieden, it was with the goal to start Mirren. I think if I remember correctly, it was on the heels also of 7 months without a day off, including weekends, and I was burnt. And I took about 2 or 3 months off and then launched Mirren, initially focused just on new business, helping agencies pitch business, but then pretty quickly moved into working with client-facing teams on organic growth as well. So
it's helped. Yeah. It's been a big help for us. I've been through a number of agencies, but still stayed in contact with you and attended your events. My favorite thing that I've learned of many is, are you favorite or filler? And it's a question that agencies never really ask themselves unless they've been through your counsel, because we get so hungry for, we've got to plant a flag here. Either we have a leaky bucket, which is our business. You're going to lose every client that you have eventually. So you have to have a sales development process. But the question of, are you favorite or filler? Most people go, how would you know? But you have all
Yeah.
sorts of ways to figure out how we should know.
That is a big one. What most agencies don't realize is when you get the invite, I mean, agency people, we just want to be loved. We just want everyone to like us, to love us, give us a hug once in a while, keep us happy. But we think that when we're being invited to a pitch, that they actually want us. What most don't realize is that there's a pitch participation quota that most companies have, whether it is looking for a new agency or whether it's buying paper for the company. X number of vendors must participate in the review. So they'll invite the agency or two that they know will do a great job, that they know will not disappoint. And then they'll invite the other 8, 10, 12, 15 to meet that pitch participation quota number. And often those are sourced by a Google search, sending out an email to colleagues. Who do you know? Who have you worked with? So a lot of agencies go in not even realizing they're in the hind pack. And it's not that you're absolutely doomed to lose the pitch, but if you go in a little bit too confident, thinking you're in the lead pack and operate accordingly, you're going to have some challenges. You have to come in even harder, even stronger, and you have to better assess, are we really what they're ultimately looking for? Because another issue is don't worry if you have relevant experience. It's okay. It doesn't, we're looking for new, fresh ideas. In fact, we want to shake up the category. We want something really creative. And the challenge is that clients actually believe that when they say it in the moment. However, as the pitch progresses, those fears of, all right, if I make a mistake here, my job is on the line. Not just not hitting the metrics for the company, but my job is on the line. And that need to make a bit more of a safer decision kicks in the 11th hour of the pitch, where that relevant experience, depth of knowledge plays more of a significant role than most agencies realize.
Yeah, particularly if the CEO finally comes in to, if you look at the scalar chain of how it works, usually a clerk, director, or manager level puts together the RFP. This is a big thing for them because they were given the assignment to put the RFP together. And then the next level is that, well, let's invite some folks. There's always going to be the favorites, and then there's going to be the seat fillers. And I learned from you what I call it the Columbo close. You may not call it the Columbo close, but at the end of a phone call, when you actually reach them, you ask one last question: is, how'd you hear about us?
Yeah. Yeah, kind of why us? Bring it back around to how do you suss out if you're in this behind in the pitch or one of the favorites. The why us question, and what's most important when you ask that is that you give them the space to answer or not answer it very well. There's a lot of clues in what they say. So, and it's important that it's also not confrontational, but it's almost from a perspective of curiosity. So why us? What made you give our agency a call? And if there's a long moment of silence, that's them. That's their inside voice going, I meant to spend more time on their website reading up on these guys before this call. Damn it. So then you'll get a generic answer like, well, we really like your work. You're a great group of people. And if you get something generic, it needs to be followed by, well, that's great. We love our work as well. We're pretty proud of the results we've been able to achieve for our clients. Which work in particular do you find most relevant to your situation and the needs of this brief? And it's asked very diplomatically, very friendly, never in a confrontational tone or condescending tone. And if they can't get specific, that means they don't know you from Adam. Period. End of story. What you're looking for is specificity. Well, that work that you did for that client, it was absolutely genius. And the results, just brilliant. Oh, and the work that you did over here. In fact, I read the case study on this. Really interesting. In fact, I'd love to ask you a few questions about that. When you get that response, that's when you know you're the lead agency in the pitch. So that why us question, giving it space. I remember at Wyden, we learned we had to ask this question as well because everybody thinks they want to be Nike. And we loved to brag
Right.
about Nike. And in fact, I remember one pitch. I'm probably not supposed to say this, but it goes back a couple of years. And we were pitching Staples. And so, office supplies, retail, very specific mindset. And they, in fact, asked us to present the Nike case study. So we're presenting it in the capabilities meeting, the creative directors presenting it. And I could see the chief marketing officer who came from Bain running the data and analytics practice. So we're presenting this very creatively driven case study to a left brain data person. And I could see her sort of sitting back in her chair, arms crossed, kind of, and she's like, excuse me, I just have to stop you here. Why are you presenting the Nike case study? We don't do celebrity endorsements. We're not in sports. We don't have several $100 million. So the creative director commented, of course, in a very arrogant, condescending tone. Well, first of all, you asked us to, but it actually wasn't. I'll come back around to that point as the person managing the pitch, not the decision maker. But if you'll just listen to me, I will explain to you how we are going to transform the Staples business. And it was, oh my God, okay, all right. It might be easier if we just sort of shake hands and save each other the next hour of time here. But we went on nonetheless. And part of the issue here, also, another minefield in the pitch process, is that pitches are managed by a mid-level marketing manager.
Right.
Or they're not managed by the decision maker. They don't have time to run reviews. So now you've got someone giving you very specific instructions, guessing what they think their boss, what the decision maker wants, but they don't have the same perspective on the organization. They don't have the same pressures, the same accountability. So you get misguided information, misguided direction, often from the person who's managing the pitch. That's a huge one that catches a lot of agencies, shows up at tissue sessions.
Yep.
Hey, we want to have a look at the strategy, maybe a bit of the creative direction, give you some feedback. But for some reason, the decision maker who was scheduled to show up at the tissue session doesn't in the end. Now you're being given some pretty bad advice in terms of where to take everything. So lots of minefields.
Well, it helps. I think people are afraid of the momentum that you develop in a pitch cycle. You're kind of locked in like a tractor beam, Star Trek. And you just feel this obligation to complete. And along the way, you have to have the ability to just opt out. So for us, we'll say, well, our closing rate's like 70%. That's because we say no to a lot of companies, sometimes in the middle of the pitch. And we will, the process of the pitch, and we'll walk. And particularly if we can't get to the people that are going to be at the final table or talk to them, or we've actually stopped a pitch when they said, look, hey, the CEO sends his apologies. He's empowered all of us at this table to make the decisions. And you guys are, we just love what you guys have done so far. And we've said,
Matt,
do
you're
it.
giving me flashbacks. You're giving me flashbacks to pitching. I heard that so many times. Yeah.
Brent, in the art of the pitch, either leading up to it or inside the pitch the day of, what kind of advice would you give somebody listening now that are on the verge of getting in the door and pitching?
Good question. I'll see if I can distill down some of the most important best practices. Number one, you need to be clear if you should even be in the room or not. A lead is not a lead until it is qualified and until you are qualified. Remember that clients are inviting their favorites, and fillers to meet their pitch participation quota. So make sure you should even be in the room. That would be number one. Number two, you must elevate the brief. The brief is not written by the senior decision maker who is slammed, who is busy, who is focused on other things. They have delegated the brief down to someone a level or two below. And it's important that you elevate that brief, whatever the request might be. It's usually awareness is one of the top. We want to build awareness for our new line of retail banking products, whatever it might be, because you can spike awareness and still not drive any new customers into their banks. NEOs in retail banking, new accounts opened, is a big KPI. So you've got to elevate the brief, reinterpret the brief, tie it to business KPIs. Take it to that level. If you do not, you blend in with the pack, you are a tactical vendor. In fact, if you operate perfectly on brief for a tactical brief, you're a tactical vendor. I would say in the room, there's elements of some principles from storytelling that apply. And we need to bring some drama, some engagement to that presentation. In fact, there's an opening act in a pitch presentation that is absolutely critical, and it is magical to watch it unfold. The opening act breaks into three pieces. Number one, you set the client up as the hero, that they are worthy of a big goal. Maybe it's Swiffer Jets. You have transformed the mop category. You've created a recurring revenue model. It is incredible what you have achieved. And because of that, we have a goal to increase sell-through at retail, to push that needle as hard as we can. But then you've got to talk about the challenges that you have to overcome to be able to achieve that big goal. And it might be commoditization of the category, knockoff brands. You've got to be frank, but not condescending or arrogant. You've got to be frank with the client about the challenges they have to overcome, or together you have to overcome with them to achieve the goal. Often agencies want to pussyfoot around those challenges, put a rosy lens, make the client feel. No, clients appreciate strength of character where you can be frank, constructive, and be straight up about what it's going to take to work. So, should you even be in the room? Focus on the client's business, add a little bit of drama and engagement. And yes, more can always be found at Mirren.com.
Great, great. Appreciate your help. You got Mirren live as well. That's going to be coming out. When's the CEO conference?
Well, we might be shifting it now where we're going to focus solely on AI this fall. We did an AI conference back in, I think it was early February. We had about 1,300 people. That one was virtual only. So I think we're going to combine our CEO conference and AI into one coming up late October, early November, most likely back in New York again. And our focus on AI is let's cut through the hype, all the hyperbole, let's put it to work. Here's stuff you can do right now to be using AI at your agency to give you a leg up.
Stay on the pitch for a moment, but let's advance the ball to what I've seen post-COVID, and I'll call that the flight to safety. So there seems to be a gap in what I would call the middleware of agencies that are full service integrated agencies, some in flyover states, some in big states, but they have a couple of categories. They have a great team. They do some media. They can put together a campaign. But after COVID, we saw a sweep of some of the biggest agencies winning, winning, winning. And when we questioned some of the client prospects, it's like, look, we just can't mess around anymore. COVID devastated our business. We don't have any time to second guess and do a trial. We're going to have to go with some of the bigs, or we want a very tight, not boutique, but specialty agency that can deliver 1, 2, 3, or 4 credentials that we're missing in our gap because people have decided, I don't want to work for IBM anymore. I want to buy a Sprinter van and Zoom from Malibu with a cup of coffee in our hand. So Where do you see that sort of the middleware not being included, or a need for them to sharpen their saw, so to speak, in terms of their positioning and their ability to bring to life a coherent story in a category or the work that they do?
Yeah, we're definitely seeing this as well. It's been noted from an M&A perspective as well, where the smaller shops have become hot targets. And it is, I think, a bit of a situation, to your point, where you've got the smaller shops that are more nimble, agile, uh, often more specialized, or at least the ones that are getting a lot more business certainly have, and it's not always just one area of specialization, it can be multiple, but they're very effective at getting deep into a specific category or deep into a newer capability. But and the pricing tends to be a little bit better there. They can compete in that way. And then you've got the safe bets, the large, well resourced, can work on network plays where they can share business back and forth between the holding company. And then you've got the middle group. Now, I'm not convinced it's going to remain like this.
Mhm.
And I think no matter what type of agency or size of agency you're at, part of it is building a balanced pipeline where you have choice. So, a balanced pipeline meaning moving beyond the RFP addiction and adding proactive prospecting, adding organic growth, adding a digital, a proactive digital marketing program for the agency that is using kind of almost HubSpot like inbound content marketing to generate, nurture, and actively create leads for the agency. And I think when an agency's pipeline is solely dependent upon RFPs or maybe Rolodex and the network, once the Rolodex dries up, and that happens at every agency, um, and then you're only forced to focus on RFPs. Now you also feel this need to have to say yes to the bad RFPs, to the situations that your gut is telling you we need to run, not walk from this situation. But there's an undue pressure to say yes because you don't know when the phone is going to ring again, as opposed to you have RFP options potentially coming in, but you've got some choice now. You've got some balance there. Well, we've got this proactive opportunity. We've been digging deep into QSR or retail banking. So we haven't pushed into the Northeast yet with retail banking. And we've got a couple of good meetings set up. Let's pass on these RFPs. They look a little sketch, anyways. Let's focus on our proactive prospecting opportunities. Plus, we've leaned in with a couple of clients. Some of those projects are going to be coming to life now. We've actually got lots of opportunity. We don't have to say yes to every single phone call that comes in. So I think building that balanced pipeline, like any organization on the planet normally does, except for agencies. In fact, I was speaking at a conference once, and I tried to get people to name another industry that doesn't have dedicated sales or more proactive efforts happening. And I think I commented maybe the funeral industry, and someone said, "Nope, I got a call from them the other day and a couple of emails." So even they're out ahead of us. So yeah, so I think that transcends size, that transcends type. Then, if you can overlay depth of category knowledge, category specialization, but across multiple categories, so you don't have all your, you know, eggs in one basket, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, we've gone down the path in several of the agencies that I've worked with or managed or owned, and we've just narrowed it down to you've got to be able to speak the language of the client, all their KPIs. You must know their language.
Yeah.
It's great if you have somebody that has worked on the client side and brings, a shoulder uh, method of just bullying in and understanding. Hey, this person has worked on the depression drug, fill in the blank what the name is. Therefore, we can win out on this pharmacy pitch. But narrow focus, saying no more focus on yes. And then about the tools. So you mentioned a little bit about the technology of outbound marketing, and we can talk about that in a minute. But let's go broader a little bit on AI. You and I have lived in a world where we have heard no less than a half a dozen people state that they're going to kill the agency model. So back when Mike Ovitz ran CAA, and he said, I'm going to eliminate the agency business because I own all the creative resources. Or Mark Zuckerberg at Facebook, I'm eliminating that middleware or the middleman agency, and I'll work directly with clients. Well, he didn't understand that clients didn't even know how to use the platform. Same thing with Sergey at Google. So many people have said the ad industry is dying. It's funny how we immediately, maybe because we're just paranoid, but we immediately go to how the industry is going to die, and then we figure out how to recover like Lazarus from the ashes. And will AI replace the agency model? I don't think it will, but I want your answer on that. And then what are the things that you're seeing in some of your training? Because I went to the CEO conference. When was that? Was that last year? I can't remember.
Yeah, last fall.
Last
Yeah.
fall. And that was a fascinating approach, and it's changed since fall, inclusive of today. Now I can't stop using the AI assistant in the upper right-hand corner of a PDF to summarize a 900-page RFP.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about what you've seen on the AI model, how it can help us, and what we have to watch out for.
I think this is one of the most exciting times in the agency business, and I compare this back to the .com boom and when the internet really took off. And of course, I'm dating myself by saying that, but I think the opportunity in terms of using AI as a productivity, a strategic, a creative booster, the opportunity here is tremendous. And there's a saying that's been going around for a while now: AI won't take your job, someone using AI will.
Mm.
That I do firmly believe. We're using it every day here at Mirren as well. It's almost like having a really smart teammate that you can have a banter with, that you can work with to help elevate your work, to help you get your work done more quickly and even at a higher level. I think the agency world has been slow to embrace AI, far too slow. We're seeing it in our training. We're seeing it, we had Mirren Live last week in New York. We had a number of AI sessions again. And based on the questions that were coming in from the audience and kind of polling that was going on with the audience, not enough progress is happening. And I think there's a large group that are in the camp of, is this just one of the newest tech fads that this is going to blow past over the next few months or a year or so? So they're kind of holding back. Others a little bit frozen, I think overwhelmed. There's, even figuring out which applications, which LLMs to use. It can feel like boiling the ocean. There's hundreds, there's thousands of applications to choose from. Policy, governance, privacy issues. What can I put into GPT? What can't I put in? Clients that are starting to add clauses to the MSAs in terms of, you cannot use AI in any fashion
We're seeing a lot of that.
unless you ask for permission to do so. So I think the industry as a whole is a little bit behind. Creatives have embraced it faster than we expected in a couple of ways, not only in terms of creating for design and visuals and storyboarding, but we're seeing creatives using it as a brainstorming tool, like having another member of the team to bounce ideas back and forth with and elevate their thinking. Media with programmatic, data and analytics. There's a number of groups that have embraced it and will continue to. I think a couple of areas where it needs to be better utilized is strategic development, day-to-day client management. On the strategic development side, it is unbelievable what you can get out of something as simple as Claude or GPT-4 for client business analysis, for creating journey models, for creating personas, for creating synthetic target audiences where you build a simple, even a custom GPT where you upload all the data, all the information, the personas that you're able to gather on a particular target audience, and then engage the model as if it were that target audience for a form of research. Um, a lot of untapped potential there. In fact, coming up next month, we've got a 3-part series that we're doing on using AI for account management, project management, strategic development to try to get agencies to lean in a little bit more in some of these untapped opportunities. So I think it's a big opportunity. I think for those that don't embrace it, this will be a nail in the coffin, and I hate to be negative like that, but there's been a growing divide in the industry for a while. I think those that are progressing in a meaningful way with their capabilities, with their new business efforts, and those that are not. This will further that divide, I think.
We had on one of our previous tapings, two of the top lawyers from Davis and Gilbert who have been in our corner for a long time. They're a top law firm in Manhattan, focusing on the advertising marketing services business. And it was Ashima Dayal and Ina Shore. And one represented the trial side of life, prosecution side or defense side, because you have to actually defend if you get into trouble. And then the other is on the policy side and contract side. And it was fascinating to see that from the trial side, they're already prepping for what they know will be coming. And from a policy and a trend side, the advice and counsel that they can give, particularly you had mentioned MSAs, contracts that are coming up with how you shall or not shall use AI in your business practices. At 500, we have to create for our clients that are super international scale companies, we have to create a walled garden. So from a creative staff point of view, we don't want anybody putting client IP into Chat GPT and releasing it to the world. So it has to be, we have to have these controls on how we use it for the brainstorming. But then as we create with our own smart dams and LLMs, all of the optimized creative that we feed out to the platforms, that is almost our internal AI function. So it's been an interesting ride. It's not cheap. And I can see how people don't want to move into that direction because to do it right, particularly for scale clients, you have to spend a lot of money.
And I think that's the future, Matt. I think that's what agencies have to move towards. And I would have to think over the next 12, 18 months, it's going to become much more inexpensive to build those sandboxes, to build those walled gardens where the data is truly protected.
When we talk about data, particularly, all right, so this is kind of a new move for everybody, and I want your opinion on it. If we take a look at the pitches, particularly those that are full funnel, and there'll be 3 or 4 components, part of like, here's the team, chemistry track. You've already done that to get to the last final. But you have to have a supreme knowledge of how their technology works. So you can't be married to your own technology, but how theirs works. Who knows what systems they have. So you have to have a data wonk, data nerd, somebody that knows how to push the buttons and get it done. Then you have to have a campaign that's going to address the issue associated with the ask in the RFP. But what about the big idea? Does the big idea still have a place in today's pitches? Just some thoughts on that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. And there's a couple of big things that I think separate agencies from internal, in-housing that's taking place from the big consulting firms. And I think it's creativity and that big thinking that only agencies can do, along with genuine consumer insight. On the big creative idea front, that's where the real breakthrough, I think, hits. That's where it all comes to life in the form of that creative idea behind the campaign, the program, the effort. And I think clients want that. Clients sort of have two sides to them.
Right.
There's that left brain, They're very fact based. They're very data driven. They're much more pragmatic than us agency folks, and they need to see results. They need to see business impact, but they've got a little right brain in them. They want to be wowed. They want to be excited. They still look forward to a meeting with their agency, especially when there's going to be some strategy, some creative that's going to be presented. It's a bit of a highlight of their week, of their day to go in, but often expectations are high. They want to be wowed a little bit. So I think from a keeping clients engaged and also work that really does break through and have an impact, the big idea, the big creative idea, 100% still needed. Yeah.
Yeah, you still need to have that moment of, wow, I really like that idea. Almost
Yeah.
the rest of it, it's not table stakes. That's not the correct frame, but it's sort of in the neighborhood. Uh, to get to the dance, you've got to make the machine work. You have to
Yeah.
understand how the modern marketing machine works, and then you can establish credentials to say, yeah, we're not going to screw it up. But to walk out of that meeting with, gosh, I really like that headline. I think I'm going to put that on the annual report. If you have the CEO in the room, that's going to
Yeah.
be important.
The part that leads up to the big creative idea is all the rationale, because even when a client loves a big creative idea, there is a little piece of them. What if I'm not right? What if this has gone into an intangible space that I am not used to living in? I live in a very tangible world in my role. So that strategic setup, it's almost like the bigger the creative idea, the bigger the strategic setup needs to be to make the client feel safe about that big creative
Yeah,
concept.
that makes sense. A couple of hot takes for you. So we've seen, Barclay Evergreen has bought OKRP. Sir Martin's turn away of Stagwell's offer. The PE world seems to be lighting up and getting hot right now. It went through a period of ups and downs. You had the low interest that encouraged PE firms to just make a run at everybody. Then you had the post-COVID stall, because literally, when we've talked to PE firms, it was, well, 2020 didn't happen. So that was an anomaly. And then 2021, well, it's kind of a bounce back year for you. So then it was 2022, you don't really have a trend line. So now we are at 2024 moving into 2025. You mentioned the M&A world. Talk to us a little bit about what you're seeing in terms of a combination of talents.
Well, I think Barclay and OKRP coming together is quite an interesting story. They actually happen to be both our
Did they?
clients as
Got
well,
it.
so know the agencies well. And I think the stars, the planets lined up for that one in terms of, I think they're a phenomenal cultural fit. I think they are complementary to one another. They both have an ability, and this is, I think, one of Barclay's strengths in the industry in particular, an ability to operationalize like few agencies can, in terms of the proactive nature of just getting built operations systems in
Mm.
place and really moving the organization forward. So I think that's a particularly interesting merger acquisition that took place. I think obviously some of the hot small shops, when there is something that I think is particularly unique, when there is some sort of specialization. Now, that specialization can come in a few forms, though. It can come in category, it can come in form of a capability, a service offering. Sometimes it's buying talent, specialized talent. So I think what I feel like I don't have a good sense of is what the next year or two is going to bring in M&A, given that there's been a number of surprises over the last couple of years. What do you think is ahead, Matt, in terms of your
Yeah,
purview on?
it's from an agency manager point of view, it's a big distraction. Obviously, agency leaders are very interested in um, being able to monetize the investment of the business that they've built, and they can't really let the employees buy it out because they don't have a lot of credit. in terms of being able, unless it's an ESOP, and ESOPs have their own issues associated with them. So an employee-led buyout, unless it's somebody that's highly financed and has wealth, can do it. Then you've got the one-offs, which are another company supporting another company and say, hey, let's do business together, figure out a way that we can merge entities and operations, save something administratively. But that doesn't have enough, I think, coin and incentive for some of the leaders. I think the PE firms, the ones that are sharp about it, there's CIC Partners out of Austin, Texas. We've talked to those guys. I believe the Stevens Group out of Dallas, they have a number of specialty firms. There's Capital out of Charlotte. They've got a number of specialty advertising firms. Houlihan Lokey, I've worked with for a number of years. They've got some great firms in their path, and they're being very prescriptive of how they build it. They don't have an overall arching goal to cobble everybody together and under one brand. They just want to figure out how to grow this individual brand and go bigger. Clients kind of get lost in that process. There's change of control issues that you have to deal with, but the distraction probably is the biggest thing that everybody has to guard against, because it's a 9-10 month slog to make something happen. You have to pass an audit. You've got to do due diligence. You got to do a chemistry check. And then, God forbid, usually right before the closing table, something horrible happens. You lose a big business. And that's the hardest part, really, to summarize. It's basically, this is a human business, and it's a leaky bucket business. And unless you got that fresh contract and big momentum, it's hard.
And if it's your first time, through that process, often the mistakes that are made that you don't realize until it's too late probably cost you on your multiple or your earn-out, whatever your terms are, the term sheet. That's a tough process.
We're going to end. This has been great. Thank you so much for your time. Brent, where can we find you?
Mirren.com, MIRREN.com. You can always shoot me an email as well. Brent, BRENT at Mirren.com, Brent at Mirren.com. Check out our latest training. AI has become a big portion of all the training that we're doing right now, helping agencies kind of leapfrog those who are not taking advantage of it, stay one step ahead.
Love it. Thanks for joining us. But I wanted to thank Fallback Studios, Jennifer Hegren, who's our producer, Joe Stuber, who's our writer, and we'll see you next time. On the next episode of Burning Questions, is AI about to take your job? I want to know. Can we coexist and, dare I say, maybe even achieve success with AI? I'm talking about the controversial tech tool with AI guru Chris Hall from AIQ.
Frankly, if employees don't get on the AI bus, they're going to be woefully ill-equipped to compete for jobs in the future.
I've got the Q's, he's got the A's. We're going to talk about AI on the next Burning Questions.